What's going on there, everyone? Well, this story kind of just it's everything that's great about Dave Chappelle and everything that's completely terrible about left-wing media. Now, as a disclosure, I haven't watched the full special yet. I've only seen bits and pieces here and there of the special, but I'm definitely gonna have to sit down because everything I have seen of it was hilarious. It's typical legendary Chappelle, except he goes even harder after the woke part of society that is ruining everything, and it makes me so happy. And I think it'll make most people who love comedy and hate wokeness extraordinarily happy too. And I will say it's edgy, it's fairly edgy, but great. It's what comedy should be. It's what comedy should be. Well, let's get into this article from everyone's favorite super left source, Vice. You can definitely skip Dave Chappelle's new Netflix special, Sticks and Stones. No, you can't. You gotta see it. You got to see it. If you agree with any of my opinions or points of views, you're gonna want to watch this. It does have some really strong language in it, so it's not something you probably want to watch with the little ones. The comedian doubles down on misogyny and transphobia in both the special and hidden bonus scenes that follow. Wah. Someone called the wambulance. We got a whiner. Dave Chappelle made his return to Netflix Monday with a new stand-up special, Sticks and Stones. Fans quickly realized that if you watch until the very end, the special has a secret epilogue called The Punchline, where Chappelle answers questions from audience members who went to his separate Dave Chappelle on Broadway stand-up show last July. The special takes the comic's anti-wokeness shtick to a new level, and the whole thing is repetitive and exhausting enough that it's a slog to even make it to the Q&A. Yeah, I can imagine people who are part of the woke class thinking that, because he berates them. He makes them seem as foolish as they are. It's a thing of beauty, people. My God, we've seen Dave Chappelle do all kinds of controversial things in the past. When it comes to his show was brilliant. I mean, the blind black man that was part of the KKK was probably one of the funniest sketches I've ever seen a comedian pull off. I mean, that was priceless. It was so funny. Everything Chappelle does is funny. I'm sorry. I'm a big Chappelle fan. Been watching him since my youth when he first did Half Baked and came onto my radar. I was like, this guy is gonna be hilarious, and he never fails. Chappelle's controversial 2017 Netflix specials like The Age of Spin, Dave Chappelle live at the Hollywood Palladium, and Equanimity, and the Bird Revelation. Sorry, that word blew my brain for a second. Honed his voice as a comedian wary of progressive criticism. That voice is even sharper in his latest special. At one point, in his routine, he says he doesn't believe Michael Jackson molested young children. He continues by saying that if Jackson did it, the children should have felt lucky for the first time to be with the king of pop. Adding, do you know how good it must have felt to go to school the next day after that shit? Excuse the language. This will have some language in it. But it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a ridiculous joke. Come on. Do people not remember the days where comedians were edgy all the time? When they didn't just pander to certain groups to get that group's message across? Dave Chappelle remembers those times, and he's bringing us back. At least he's trying. And there's quite a bit of comedians who are just trying to get away from this wokeness brigade. And God, I hope they do. God, I hope they do. Chappelle also returned to his now infamous obsession with making fun of trans people, saying, "Trans people hate my effing guts, and I don't blame them. I can't stop writing jokes about these N-words with an AS. This time, these jokes included asking the audience how funny it would be if he was actually a Chinese person stuck inside a black man's body, which, you guess it, also included a racist impression of a Chinese person. It's just an impression. It's just an impression. Just because someone does an impression of someone doesn't mean they're trying to denigrate a whole class of people or a whole group of people or anything like that. Come on. Remember when jokes were funny? Remember when the news told news? Yeah. Shut up, Vice. You are worthless. But you do make for a funny read. A real good funny read. Oh. He also found time to defend fellow controversial comedians like Kevin Hart and Louis C. When has Kevin Hart ever been controversial? How is Kevin Hart controversial? Because he said one joke that the outrage mob didn't like, so now he's deemed controversial to the left? I could see why Louis C.K. could be considered controversial. Not just because of that whole thing with him pleasuring himself while a girl stands there and watches. With consent. Consenting adults doing this. Which means he did nothing wrong in the first place. Was it cringy? Yeah, it was a little cringy. It was a little creepy. But who cares? They were consenting adults. He asked. They allowed it. Shame on them. Not him. Come on. Painting them as victims of overzealous call-out culture, which is absolutely 100% factually correct statement. They are an overzealous call-out culture. By all criteria, they fit. They call out everybody for anything and everything, but they won't call themselves out. They protect each other when the same rules were broken by one of their own. They have nothing to say, and they shield that person and they cloak that person. Come on. By the time the Q&A plays at the end of the special, Chappelle has already shown his unapologetic approach to courting controversy. His answers put that into even starker view. He says that a white woman left one of his practice sets for the special at the Punchline Comedy Club in San Francisco, telling him, "I'm sorry, I was raped." Chappelle said he replied with, "It's not your fault. You were raped. But it's not my fault either. Ta-ta, biatch." That's hilarious to me. Because not only did he say a valid point during that, just the hilariously cynical nature of the whole thing. I mean, you went to a comedy club to hear jokes. You know, you don't go to a comedy club for a lecture, unless you're going to like one of those progressive left comedy clubs where they literally just get up there and lecture about wokeness and whatnot, which we've seen that before, and it's pretty pathetic. There was actually a comedian's special. I'm not going to say her name, but there was a comedian's special on Netflix where it was labeled as a comedy special, yet it's her standing up there for an ungodly amount of time just complaining and whining. Come on. No one wants to see that. I would much rather go see Dave Chappelle, even if he personally singled me out and just ragged on me for an hour and a half. I would be so happy to see that, especially in these days. To which the audience, or he said the ta-ta B word, to which the audience laughs raucously, excuse me. I'm retarded today. As though that were a real punchline. Then he followed with a story about sparking an unlikely friendship with a trans woman who says was laughing the hardest out of anyone at the trans jokes in his practice set. The strange story of camaraderie seemed to highlight the common accusation that Chappelle is only interested in repairing his relationship with marginalized groups. if he doesn't have to change anything about himself. People shouldn't have to change things about themselves just to please other people. Why do we have to please other people, first off? Aren't we supposed to be like individuals? You know, non-conformist? That would be a good thing, right? No, apparently not to the left. To the progressive side of everything. They want you to conform, and if you don't conform, we see they like to use violent tactics to make you conform. But yeah. And this actually happens a lot when they're saying that the trans person was laughing the hardest at the trans jokes. Yeah, that's because they know they're jokes. They know they're joking. That's why they went to a comedy club. Especially if you go see someone like Dave Chappelle, you know if he sees you, oh, he's going to say something. Chappelle has always been a daredevil comedian, willing to take on controversial stance or downplay a serious controversy for laughs, including his early 2000 skits about R. Kelly's court trials on Chappelle's Show. But now he chooses to blatantly ignore the historic criticism against his style of comedy and new loud and clear criticisms from the trans community. Shut up. He just doesn't care. Why should he care? People aren't here to specifically make you feel better. No. People don't have to do that. It's ridiculous to even think that. That's a very authoritarian way of thinking that is no good for anybody. So yeah, he should be able to do this. He should be able to do this. And it's beautiful when he does it, because he is a master at work. His approach comes off like a defiant rejection of change at any cost. As he keeps going down this path, drawing attention to the worst aspects of his important career, the biggest cost will be tarnishing his own legacy. I disagree with that. I disagree with that 100%. This is going to bolster his legacy. Because in the age of outrage, he's standing up to the morons. The absolute morons. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But he's not the first. There's been many comedians out there right now, and many legends of the comedy world that would completely be going utterly insane at the thought of wokeness, period. I mean, look at all the past comedians, the edgy past comedians. A lot of them were considered on the left back then, you know? Carlin. I would consider him to be more of a liberal type guy. Maybe libertarian, but liberal. And, dang, what's his name? Can't think of the other guys that I wanted to say his name. Having a brain fart. But yeah, the fact is comedy has been dying. And you can look at... Perfect thing is to go on the Joe Rogan podcast. Watch that stuff. You will see whenever he's talking to comedians, they're always talking about the world they're in and how it's been falling apart due to wokeness and progressivism and everyone being offended at everything. It has really hurt the comedy world. I guess I'll just end with good job. Good job, Dave Chappelle. Keep doing what you're doing. You're a breath of fresh air. And this is what comedy needs. And people just gotta stop being so snowflaked. Stop. You're melting. You don't have to do that at every single thing that happens. Every comedy set that has something that offends you, oh well, get over it. You're but one person in a sea of billions. If you get offended, just keep it to yourself. No one cares. No one truly cares. Even your woke friends don't actually care about your feelings. They only care about their own. But I'd love to hear your comments on this. Whether you think he's going too far, especially if you've seen the whole thing. Whether he's going too far or whether he's just right. Which I happen to believe he's perfect. I don't care, I don't care what the outrage mobs are gonna say. It doesn't matter. This is comedy. It's jokes. Get over it. But as always, like, share, and subscribe. I will catch you on the flip side.